Here.
How did orientation go?
And you're always more than welcome to ask questions, and we will giggle through it.
Great. Thank you.
Let's see. Katie, we do have a quorum. I believe the only member not here at the moment is Patrick. We do have a quorum, and it's 6 o'clock, so we are live, but feel free to start when you're ready.
He did tell me he was coming today. So
Okay, thanks, Shelley.
Great. It'd be wonderful if we had everyone.
Mhm.
That sounds great. I'm really excited to meet our new members and to hear about your background and your reasons for joining the EAB. But we will start with roll call. Suzanne?
Present.
We're waiting on Patrick. Adam?
Present.
John?
Present.
Bill?
Here.
Jason?
Here.
Kim?
Here.
And Greg?
Present.
Great. Thanks. Does anyone have any comments about the December minutes? Oh, Patrick, I got you.
Hey, thanks.
If there are no questions or concerns about the minutes, would anyone like to make a motion to approve them?
I'll move to approve. Oop, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the December 16th meeting.
Great. John, was that you who wanted to second?
I will second, yes.
Great. I will vote in favor. Suzanne?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Adam, I'm assuming that you will abstain.
Abstain.
Okay. John?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Jason, I'm assuming you will abstain as well.
Exactly.
Kim?
Aye.
And Greg?
Aye.
Great. Minutes are approved. Megan, I will turn it over to you.
I do not have any announcements this evening, but I believe Shelley has a brief announcement for you. Shelley?
hi, everybody. A few months ago, Mr. Adams asked how staff would be reviewing pollinator gardens when they come in, since that's one of the zoning conditions y'all had mentioned or have been recommending. And just wanted to let you know that staff is working on that. At the moment, we we are anticipating it will probably involve an update to the design and development manual. We want to touch base with the B City group first to see how far along they are with their certification program. If you remember, we had, for those of you who are on the board, we had our very last in-person meeting, if I recall, was we had a presentation from the B City USA group, and they are working on, I think, a 3-tiered certification program for pollinator gardens. And because staff, well, we have a lot going on, and we don't think there's any need to reinvent the wheel if what they've got going on will work. We're going to touch base with them, see what they have, and see if what they're recommending for their certification levels would work for us to be able to implement as a review device, essentially. We're also going to look into a couple of other things as well, but I wanted to let you know we are working on it. It's just as is usual with government, especially when we're as overwhelmed as we are. It's going to take a little bit of time.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Megan, shall we turn to the new member intros?
Yes, we should. And I just realized that's probably what you were queuing me for, and we did that backwards. But now is a wonderful time to, we have John Garrison back with us, and we have 2 new members with us, Adam and Jason. Adam, would you like to go first to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Adam Eford, and I'm glad to be here. I'm an environmental project manager with a company in Cary called NV5. Been doing that for about 14 years, a few different companies, but I've been with NV5 2 years. Been in Apex for 5 years and Cary before that. And my background's in wildlife ecology, and I do natural resources work in my current company. So anything wetland and stream related and protected species and any sort of natural resource work. I manage projects for our biggest client's DOT, so do a lot of work for DOT. And I just wanted to, use my background to serve in another capacity than just my Monday through Friday job, and serve the community that I live in. So I had an interest in joining this board, so I'm appreciative of the fact that I'm able to join it. So I'm glad to be here.
We're really happy to have you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks, Adam. Jason?
Yeah, I'm Jason Maynard. I've been in Apex all my life, 41 years. My family is from around here. I'm sorry for those that were in orientation with me, but I'll say the same thing. My family's been around in this area since the 1800s, maybe even earlier than that. Maynard Road is named after us, and my grandmother actually coined the peak of good living. So I've been around. So my family's been around. So I really want to actually benefit Apex for that reason. I've got a background in horticulture. Currently, we are converting our backyard to a permacultural system and looking to improve the sustainability of our household that way. So I hope to bring in some of those expertise to the group. In addition to, I'm also a learning and development coordinator over at the company that I work at, and maybe I can bring in some skills from that aspect as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. I think that's a real claim to fame to know the person who coined the peak of good living.
Yes, it's great to have you both.
Very
Oh, go ahead,
possible
Bill.
that's where through your family, the Maynards, I know a lot of them, so.
You probably know some of my cousins then.
No doubt.
I'd also like to say an official welcome to Councilmember Stallings, who's with us officially as our council liaison. this month. Ms. Stallings, would you like to say a couple words?
Just say hello, everyone. And I've been appointed by the mayor to be the liaison for you all this year. And I'm just really looking forward to this. I'll probably be off camera, but I'll be listening in case you need me for anything. But I am so excited about this board and looking forward to your work and looking forward to learning from each of you. So I'm looking forward to this evening and the months together.
Thank you. And Megan, do we have tree cap and Bee City updates or no?
We have no updates from Tree Cap, and we do have some feedback from Bee City. They're currently replacing 2 members, which will occur in a February town council meeting. And so there will likely not be a new Bee City committee meeting until late February. On that note, I want to remind everyone that last year, I believe in November, Suzanne visited the Tree Cap to discuss the suggested environmental zoning conditions and receive concrete feedback on that. We're still yet to do that for the Bee City. So I believe our representative who volunteered to attend that Bee City committee meeting was Mary Lee, who is no longer on this board. And so I'd like to open it up for another board member to step up and be that volunteer.
Let's give it a meeting to see if any of our new members feel comfortable in that role. If not, I will be happy to go.
Okay, great. And we just started grazing the surface.
Could I?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Bill.
Oh, just a quick question on a couple things on Bee City. Is there ever going to be any thought about installing a beehive, maybe a nature park? If we're going to be, we should have a beehive someplace. I talked to, when I was on council, I tried to push that a little bit, and I guess nothing's happened there. The regular bees are very passive. I mean, there's not much of a worry about getting stung, unless when I was a kid, I threw closet on my dad's beehive and managed to get stung right between the eyes. But and the second question is, we talk about pollinator gardens, but like for this year, is there any possibility of getting just pollinator plant seeds and sowing them along the pathways and stuff, rather than just have a pollinator garden? I looked at the price, but I forget what it is per pound. Just pollinator seed walk down the.
Bill, we're losing you a little bit. Is it possible for you to adjust your connection?
I don't know. Let's see.
Bill,
I'll
yes,
sit closer. Can you hear me now?
Yes. You were disconnecting there a bit, but I believe I understood your question, which was in part if we were going to install beehives in the town, and the second part is if we could disperse pollinator seeds along our pathways. And so I have a joint answer for you, which is the town is currently investigating planting wildflowers in the right-of-ways. And as part of that, there will be beehives. This is a very early project, or so a very new project. So I can't confirm any of these aspects, but this is what's being talked about currently, and I'll certainly update the board as this project progresses.
That makes me feel good. The thing that makes me feel bad, quite frankly, I've been off the council for 2 years, and I think I've tried to push that a year before. So that's a lot of years for talking,
Absolutely. And hey, Marty, our assistant town manager, is with us tonight, and I believe he has something to add.
Good.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that where we're looking at doing the pollinator gardens, when Megan says right-of-ways, we're talking about electric really easements, not right-of-ways along the streets right now. So I just want to make that clarification. When I hear right-of-way, I think roads. Okay, so so we're really talking about town easements where we have electric outfalls, if you will. So because in those we can plant these pollinator gardens and put in the beehives and stuff, and it not impact our ability to maintain our service to the citizens. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification, Marty.
Does it need to be an actual garden or like with the sewer?
The issues with sewers, we actually have to be able to maintain. We don't want in a sewer, we don't want something 3 or 4 feet tall, because if we have a spill or something, we need to be able to recognize that spill is there. So we have we're required to maintain our sewer outfalls and actually do inspections and cleaning and all those things by the state. So because of that, we would not want to go do, we wouldn't want to do pollinator gardens along the easements of sewer, because then it could possibly interfere with our maintenance activities that we need to do. It's not an issue with the electric.
And I appreciate, trying to suggest was, I mean, these easements are what, 30 feet wide, just along the outer edge of them or something, not a pollinator garden, like a rectangle or something. But I mean,
we're going to
you see
start
wildflowers growing here.
We're going to start with the electric and easements, and then we're going to see how that program progresses and see how that works out, and then we're going to try to improve it and advance upon it, after we see how that program works out.
Do you have a time schedule for that?
Our new forester guy is working on it, and so I imagine they'll be looking at doing some plantings this spring, but I do not have the details.
And Bill, I will certainly update the board as that project progresses.
All right.
Thanks, Megan. Thank you, Marty. That was a pleasure to hear from you. I think, Megan, we're probably ready for our first pre-app meeting.
Actually, I hope that you all received the updated revised agenda. We are hoping to had staff feedback on the solar flyer prior to the pre-application meetings, if I may.
Okay. Understood. I apologize about that. I did get a chance to look at the Apex website, which was extremely helpful. I don't know, Bill, if you had seen the solar resources on the Apex website.
I probably have a while back. I don't know. I haven't looked at it lately.
It was quite good.
Yeah, that's great.
There's a lot of resources.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'll listen.
There were just a lot of resources there, all in one place. And that is part of the staff feedback. So if I may go through our feedback, and then we can discuss the website. That sounds good. So first, I'd like to start off by saying that staff really appreciates the effort and the good stewardship of Bill and the intention of the solar flyer, and just the interest from the board to promote solar within the development community and within our larger community. The purpose of this staff feedback agenda item is to explain why the board cannot promote the solar flyer as is, as part of its recommendations to developers and passing it along to home buyers. So I'd like to just take a step back and reiterate the EAB purpose and the town code, which is that the charge of the Apex Environmental Advisory Board will be to assist the town council in strengthening environmentally responsible practices that protect, promote, and nurture our community and the natural world through advice and program support. And then the town code goes on to describe 8 powers and duties, 2 of which that I'd like to highlight here. Number 4, which is to acknowledge, review, and mitigate effects of climate change by recommending incentives for, specifically C, utilizing environmentally responsible building practices. And number 7, support the town's efforts to C, reduce the town's carbon footprint, and D, reach the town's goal of achieving 100% clean energy by 2050, which I believe is the spirit of this solar flyer in education. The key takeaway here is that the Environmental Advisory Board makes recommendations and the town council makes policy. And so with that, all documents and recommendations from the board need to align with town council and current policy. It also needs to align with town branding so that it can be clearly identified as town communication and as environmental advisory board communication. And I also believe that these promotions should be promoted through an environmental perspective rather than economic, as it's coming from the Environmental Advisory Board. And then, of course, as with everything, as the suggested environmental zoning conditions list was, it needs staff input. And so as we see it, to move forward with this, there are 4 options. The first 2 are going to be on using the flyer itself, and the second 2 are utilizing the existing town solar webpage, as Katie just mentioned. So option 1, to distribute the flyer to the development community, making it clear that you are speaking on your individual behalf and not on behalf of the entire Environmental Advisory Board or the town of Apex as a whole. So according to our legal team, the EAB does not have authority to distribute flyers or other information on behalf of the town or the entire board. So this would be on an individual behalf to distribute this flyer as is. Option 2 would be to include the flyer as part of the recommendations passed on to the planning committee. So no flyers should be sent directly to a developer from an EAB member. The planning committee would then discuss, review, and comment, and ultimately make the recommendation to council. And then if approved by council, then the flyer could be sent to the developer to then be passed on to home buyers. In that case, there would be no guarantee that the planning committee would approve the flyer as part of a recommendation. So then on to options 3 and 4. Option 3, refer developers to the solar and solar resources web pages. The benefit of the website is that it can be continuously updated. There won't be any outdated information floating out there. And of course, there would be no printing, which would be another check in the environmental box. And then option 4 is just an add-on from option 3, which is, again, to refer developers to the solar and solar resources web pages, while also making suggestions on what you would like to see added to it and how we might improve it. So in that case, I think the board would be tapping into more of a community outreach approach in promoting the adoption of solar to those new home buyers yourselves. So no matter what option you choose to move forward with, I think this is a really good conversation starter. This is an opportunity to discuss how you, as the Environmental Advisory Board, wishes to structure your messaging and strategize promotions to developers in our community in general. Any other staff have anything they'd like to add to that piece of feedback? Great.
This is Amanda, and I think Shelley has shared this before, but just to keep in mind, in the same vein, we can't make a zoning condition that compels a developer to provide this type of information to potential home buyers. We can certainly encourage that, suggest that, but not as a zoning condition, because we can't enforce that. There's no way for us to know that it's actually occurring, and if we can't enforce it, then it shouldn't be a zoning condition.
Thanks, Amanda.
Amanda, we did do that in the past.
Go ahead, Bill.
No, I was just going to say we did request developers to commit to adding solar to their houses in the past. We can't tell them, but if they commit to it on their own, then you're saying we can't enforce that?
No, I was referring to requiring them to provide a flyer or other information to potential home buyers. You most certainly can recommend that a developer offer a zoning condition committing to installing solar on a certain number of homes or on a certain percentage of a rooftop in a commercial development. That's fine, as we've done in the past, but not to provide information to potential home buyers about that. That part can't be a condition.
I think Bill, if you take a look at what the resources are on the town's website, you might find that most of the information you want disseminated is there. And perhaps if there's something missing, then that's an opportunity to add something to that website. There's already at least one document created by a concerned citizen on the website.
Okay, I'll look at that. And to be quite frank with you, I'm going to finish this thing off. I've already talked to developers about distributing it themselves, which is outside of the town purview, and that's probably what I'll do. I mean, I want to get this thing going. I don't want to wait another year.
And Bill, that's perfectly fine as long as it's stipulated that it's by an individual view and not by view or recommendation.
I fully recognize that.
Awesome. Thank you.
I did also just want to point out that among many of the others, among the solar resources that we have on the town's website is actually a booklet that was put together by the town a few years ago that includes a letter from the then town council, which included Mr. Jensen at the time, and then also includes a separate letter from Mr. Jensen in his own right at the time. And that booklet walks people through how to determine if solar is a good opportunity for them. So we do have a lot of great data on the website. I'm just going to share what that looks like real quick, just for a second. And then so you can honestly just type in solar resources up here in the green. And then this has a number of excellent links to it, including the town's checklists and requirements, solar benefits, including the opportunity to calculate your own solar potential, solar installers, homeowner's guide to solar. Some of these were actually referred to in Mr. Jensen's flyer as well. And then this item in particular is the one that has the letter from the town council and Mr. Jensen at the time. And then you click this net metering. It does provide an explanation of net metering as well. And the solar resources tab on the left provides even more links. So it's a pretty comprehensive resource.
Shelley, that net metering only applies to the town of Apex Electric Service, right? It doesn't apply to Duke?
Duke Energy also does net metering as well.
Right.
I actually...
this is
right.
Specific to Apex though, right?
I think so. I can double check.
I
think
it is. I think Duke's got their own separate program.
Yes. So the documentation on the website is specific to the town of Apex.
Right.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it may be helpful to let people know that I mean, I've been here in Apex for 28 years and I have yet to have an electric bill from the town of Apex. My bill comes from Duke, so I don't think I could benefit from Apex net metering.
I'll suggest that we add the Duke information on there as well, even if it's just as a resource. We can. Yeah,
I'm not saying to do any real work on it, just other than saying, you know, this applies to Apex Electric Services only. Or I'm sure somebody can come up with something a whole lot fancier than that on the webpage.
So I want to clarify, Duke does have net metering, but their net metering is totally different than ours. They have net metering with a time of use rate for solar, and they have a base charge of $28 for every customer on solar. So that is a very, very different structure than Apex. So that's just to be clear, that there's net metering, but then there's your bill structure that's tied to that as well. So that it gets rather complicated. But yes, you're right.
I think the net savings and all that would apply to a Duke customer would be a lot different than they would be for a town of Apex customer.
You're very correct. And they have a very different, existence is different than ours. They're in it as a business to make profit, and then we're here to serve the residents of our community. Very, very different.
Bill, I will add, if you continue to use your flyer that you made, double check some of the references, because I know one of the articles that was referenced on the DOE website has changed names, and it now has a completely different reference.
Okay, thank you. I'll check that. Much appreciated. Also, I will add in the Apex website to bring it more to home. The other thing is, yeah, Duke's net metering program is not nearly as good as Apex. They have the fun little thing. I think in April they set the meter to 0, so they suck out all of the credits that you have out on the line. So they're not nearly as good as Apex, that's for sure. And I did use the Apex items in the flyer.
Bill, thank you for your work on that. I was thrilled to be able to see how much work the town of Apex had done towards promoting solar as well. That was really comforting and not a resource I had been aware of before.
But yeah, and I had thought about having one go in our utility bill, but I think I'm just going to drop that from now on because I don't see an avenue to get it into the utility bill. I just, quite frankly, I've read a lot on the global warming situation, and to get to net zero at 2050, we're going to still be making one hell of a giant mess out of the world. There's no doubt about it. It's very unfortunate. And then, as an aside, I push solar like crazy, but I recognize that renewable energy isn't going to get us there. And I will throw out that if we don't go nuclear, we're never going to make it. Everybody shudders about nuclear, and I appreciate that. But if you read up on it and you know where it's going with the Generation 4 nuclears coming in, France is doing it, China, Russia scares me to death because they're going to be one of the big nuclear suppliers to the world, it looks like. And remember Chernobyl. So anyhow.
I think maybe that's a conversation for another time. Megan, since I do not clearly have the right agenda in front of me, I will let you tell us what we move to next.
That was the only revision made on the agenda, so the rest of it should be correct, and the next item is the first pre-app meeting.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Okay, so if we're ready for that, we will be admitting representatives for the Sweetwater PUD. We have David. There's a lot of folks here in the lobby, so please give me just one moment. Okay, we have David and Mitch coming in for Sweetwater PUD. David and Mitch, hi, welcome to the Environmental Advisory Board meeting.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Katie Schaff. I'm the chair of the EAB. If you would please take us through your project. I know your project is already partially completed. So if you would kind of take us through where things stand and what you're applying for specifically in this rezoning, that would be helpful.
Okay, sure. My name is Mitch Craig, and I'm with the CE Group, and our company is handling the PUD amendment for Sweetwater. And basically, it's already a PUD. We've gone through a couple of amendments, but this amendment is strictly for two things. The first thing being there's a reservation area up on 64 and Richardson Road that the town and DOT asked for in the original rezoning back in 2016. And so we are coming back in to remove that because it really hinders what can be built on the site. And it's not really necessary at this point. So we're amending that condition. Yeah, you can see it in the black dashed line there. And then the second one is there was a condition for 80,000 square feet of office for these two commercial pieces, mixed use pieces. And we're reducing that down to 55,000. And or we're seeking to reduce that down to 55,000.
Yeah, and Mitch, let me follow up on that a little bit. The primary reason for that is because we would like to put a hotel with a conference center up on 64 on that upper right side in that reservation area. The town doesn't have a good conference facility, and Marvin Waldo, who is doing all the leasing for us, has got 3 different hotels in tow. Shannon Flaherty wrote a letter to I think the council members in support of this idea, because every time the chamber needs to have a function, they're having to go to Cary or Raleigh or someplace else to hold meetings. So this would solve that problem for the town with a big conference center in that hotel. So that's the reason we want the reduction in the office space. And those are really the only 2 issues.
Those are really the only 2, and everything else stays the same from the other rezonings.
Yeah, the project is actually under construction right now. We're in the process of, doing the site work for the first 5 buildings. If you all have seen the entire, site plan or approved plans for the project, there are 5 buildings that surround an event lawn that's about the size of a football field. And that's the area that we're actually developing, first, separate from Lightbridge Academy, which is already in the ground and operating in there. So we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you for that. I would like to hear more about the reservation and what has changed there, and if that's more appropriate for town staff to fill us in on, that's fine.
I think there was some misunderstanding on our part that when Russell asked us to put the reservation in the area up there and reserve it for DOT's future use for an overchange, we thought that reservation area was for 3 years. Well, come to find out that's not the case. It had to do something, and I don't want to go into the technical parts of this, but it had to do something with some of their highway corridor. The problem we have is that overpass may not be put in for 25 to 35 years, which means it's tying up 4 acres of prime real estate for us that we can't do anything with. And we've had discussions about this, and we were told to bring it back to council for a rezoning, which is what we're doing.
So from
I guess, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's okay, David. I was just going to say, from a staff perspective, this reservation area was asked for because DOT's long range plans does have an interchange here, as David Mitch said. And true, we don't know the timing of when that will be funded and put in place. The goal of the reservation area is to ensure that the cost of putting in that interchange is not, increase significantly because or made impossible because there are then buildings or significant development within that reservation area. So staff has looked at other things that we can support and looked at other options to suggest that to modify this reservation area to kind of work out a win-win situation. So that's things that planning staff and transportation staff will be talking with the applicant about throughout this review process.
Okay. Thank you for that. Does anyone have any questions? John, I think you're on mute.
Thank you. I was wondering if there were any lighting efficiency standards y'all would be willing to consider as part of this rezoning for this area.
In the initial rezoning and the subsequent rezoning to add the apartments, we came up with some additional things with regards to charging stations and parking lots and some conduits run in the 5-story building so we could add future solar, those kind of things. So at this time, we're not offering any additional
Well, I was thinking more on light shielding and things, outdoor lighting, limiting the heat on the lights that are outdoors, say to 3,000 Kelvin. Make sure everything's dark sky compliant.
Amanda, you want to try to address that? I know the plans have been looked at. Our construction documents have already been approved and we're under construction with the lighting standards already in place. I'm not exactly sure how to answer that question.
So for any development that's already been submitted, so that would be this phase 9, the mixed use development that's over here, any new zoning conditions would not apply to committed development that's already submitted and under construction. So what any new zoning conditions that would be added in that with regard to development standards would only apply to anything that's not yet approved. So that would be any development on any portions of the development that don't have committed site plans yet, approved site plans yet. So and the UDO does have a requirement now that the lighting temperature be limited to 3,500 Kelvin. So we do have that requirement in the UDO already, in addition to requirements for house side shields when you're adjacent to residential development, which the only residential that's near here is south of Core Banks.
And of course, we will meet those standards, turn in the plans for the other sides. The western side is going to be a major grocery store. We've already got that pretty much committed. I can't tell you who it is because we're under a confidentiality agreement, but it's one of the 5. You obviously have to figure that out, but we're in the process of trying to finalize the site plans on that. So that's kind of where we are with the western side of the project.
Suzanne, I saw your hand raised.
I'm good. Thank you.
Patrick, I see your hand raised.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Amanda, just out of curiosity on the long range NCDOT plan, was there an interchange to be added at intersection of Laura Duncan and 64 where Primrose School of Apex was put in?
Primrose, yes. So there are modifications to Lake Pine, Old Raleigh Road, Lake Pine, Laura Duncan, interchange at this location and also at 751 and 64. So it's part of NCDOT's long range plans to improve efficiency and, along that important highway.
Okay. I was just looking at it from a standpoint of, with that just recently hadn't been there too long and that long range plan had already been in place when the approval was there for Primrose, how it affects this here as well. So just curious.
Greg, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, I just wanted some clarification. So from Amanda and then possible zoning. So am I understand that the only zoning conditions that can be added relate to in this case relate to the reservation area, or what are the site options in which a zoning conditions could be suggested?
So the applicant is only proposing 2 amendments to the existing zoning conditions. It's certainly possible that additional zoning conditions could be requested to be added by the EAB or the town council, but just keeping in mind that any zoning conditions that are added that change a development standard, such as lighting requirements, would not apply to any site plans that have already been submitted or approved.
Okay. And it would only apply to those that have not been approved then.
Or submitted. Once they submit their site plan, they're basically vested. They get to continue with there's something called permit choice. They can either choose to use the new rule or choose to go under the rule that was in effect whenever they submitted their plan. And so, so for any site plans that have already been submitted or subdivision plans for that matter, if it affects it at the subdivision level, then, they would not necessarily have to comply.
Okay, then I guess I have one that is a possible recommendation. Then is we were talking a lot about some of the transit aspects of this, and this is going to be a major kind of attraction for the area. So my thought is to something like construct a bus stop if a stop is desirable and recommended by town staff and transit providers after coordinating with them.
And that's something that we could look at with our town staff for long range transit plans. It's not on a current transit route or one that's currently planned at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So just so we're all on the same page, what are we looking at here to vote on?
I think currently not much.
Yeah. Well,
Have site plans been submitted for the hotel and conference center?
No, they have not.
that's what I'm saying. Are we voting to remove this or rezoning, or what are we looking at?
So you would be making recommendations for zoning conditions that could mitigate environmental impacts of the development. So their request, the primary concern is to remove this right-of-way reservation so that there's more developable area.
Amanda, may I ask just one question? On the western side of Richardson Road, has that site plan been submitted yet?
No site plans have been submitted on that side. We do have a subdivision plan that's approved, but we do not have construction drawings that are approved yet for this side. But those are probably coming in soon once they know who their, major tenant's going to be, and if any, so they know how to do final design of the site.
Thank you.
Yeah, like I said, we already know who that's going to be. The primary user over there, the grocer, we know who that's going to be. And Mitch, matter of fact, has been working on site plan details, with them. And we would hope to get something maybe by the end of, middle of March, end of March, from a preliminary plat standpoint submitted, so you all could start looking at that. But the reservation area is impacting that final layout. So we've got to get this done and then, go into that final layout after the reservation area is removed.
Is there a comparable reservation area on the north side of 64?
There are right-of-way commitments and a slight relocation of Richardson Road. As you can see, it turns more north, and there are other developments north that have Westford development, for instance, reserve some area for 64, the interchange widening. And there's another development that will be coming in, or the rezoning's been submitted, where they are planning to reserve the right of way necessary to realign Jinks Road to set up for the interchange.
And I'm sorry, I'm not totally familiar with where all those are. Are those right across from Richardson Road, or are those in other locations?
Yeah, so this is Westford development, and you may be a little difficult to see, but they have areas where they purposefully reserved and kept their development out of as they were designing the site to plan for the future interchange. And then for Jinks Road, for instance, you can see on the long range transportation plan, there is a realignment of Jinks so that it can approach this interchange, in a way that can be designed properly. And so, and we have worked with the Sweetwater developers and their traffic engineers and NCDOT on as compact of a design as possible for that interchange to use up at the least amount of land necessary for that. And that was worked out when we made some revisions in 2017, I believe, or 2018, to the reservation area.
Okay, thank you.
Patrick, did you have another question?
Yeah, just knowing this area and what they're trying to do here, I think that, with the alignment, everything looks right. And like I said, again, with knowing this area for as long as I have, it's a win-win for, across the board for our town and for the, options of going with lighting and so forth. But I mean, if we are there to make a motion, I'll go ahead and make a motion.
Can you be specific about what you would like to move on?
To approve the eliminating the easement area or whatever it's called. What's the
So to be
reservation
clear,
area.
this is actually a recommendation for zoning conditions to mitigate environmental concerns.
Yes.
You are not recommending approval or denial of
Right,
the
I'm making-
rezoning case itself.
That's correct.
Okay, so then I unfortunately will need to ask you to rephrase your motion because it sounded, to me at least, like you were recommending approval of the zoning case itself. Not recommendation of additional conditions to be added to the zoning case. Does that make sense?
That's correct. No additional.
So Patrick, though, we do have one recommendation from a member of the board regarding working with the town to determine if a bus stop would be appropriate. So I think we can move to have a vote on that, and you could vote against it, but I don't think we can ignore that recommendation.
Okay.
I would also like to see some lighting standards put in there to try to conform more with the dark sky compliance.
I'm sorry.
This is getting
1 second. I apologize for interruption, John. In order to follow Robert's Rules of Order, I need a request. I need the person who made the motion to withdraw the motion.
I'll withdraw the motion.
Thank you, Patrick. I'm sorry, John. Please continue.
I would also like to see them to a little more in compliance with the dark sky guidelines. This is getting close to Lake Jordan. And it's one of those areas that's going to be that can be affected. It's a gateway into town. I agree. I think it's a great opportunity for the town, but I think we ought to try to make sure that the lighting there is more consistent with what we've recommended in other requests.
Can I make a comment about that?
Sure.
Okay, like I said, we're not offering any additional things. I will tell you that these grocery stores have their own standards for their lighting efficiencies, which is why we don't want to agree to anything else here. I don't think that their lighting standards, because of the safety they're looking for, would meet the dark sky standards. So I think that would be problematic in and of itself. But I just thought I would throw that out there. They were very concerned about safety around their stores, as are all of the major grocers.
Well, it might be worth noting that even the UDO, as it currently stands, does note that you have to have shielding on the light fixtures. So while they're not dark sky compliant, they are, as the UDO stands, fairly strict on their glare and uplight and cutoff.
The site plan addresses all that, though. We're not. I mean, I don't think we're there, right?
No.
Except
not
that zoning conditions will affect how the site plan is developed and how it's how the lighting standards are implemented and what lighting standards are implemented. And David, just as a clarification point, staff completely understands what you're saying, and I think that the board may too. The board is, however, permitted to make recommendations even if the applicant is not agreeing to comply with them. It would simply become a part of our staff report if that was your decision as we move forward through the rezoning process.
Okay, understood. No worries.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and let me interject a little bit. One of the things that we are using on the site is lighting that has a color temperature of 3000 K. So
you got no problem with that last item then?
Well, that's what we're using.
Okay.
Yeah, Mitch, my only concern is what
the grocery may have something
going to come up with and how they're going to want that parking lot lit.
With that said, John, would you like to include all of the lighting efficiency recommendations, or did you want certain select recommendations from that list?
John, if you don't want to include them, I do. So I would say that we just add them as recommendation and see what we can achieve.
Okay. I'm good.
Fair enough.
I would like to also recommend install convenient electric vehicle charging stations, especially if this is going to be a conference center where you're going to have people driving there and hanging out for a period of time.
One point
So
of
do you have a recommendation for a number? Because the UDO does now require EV parking spaces for various uses, including retail and other uses over a certain size. So do you have any suggestions on a number?
What can you provide a little bit more background on what the size would be if this was a conference center, on how many would be?
I would have to look that up. I wasn't prepared with that. So that would take me a moment to determine.
Yeah, I'm just, I'm unfortunately pulling from our list, which is not that specific. It just says install convenient electric vehicle charging stations.
And we would need clarification on what convenient means as well. So
right.
Would you prefer
normally
them
the
closer to the
electric
building
parking
or
is going to
further
be
away?
closer to the building because it needs to be close to the electrical. You know, they don't want to run extra, you know, infrastructure far away from the building. So that usually takes care of itself.
Okay.
For commercial uses, I believe it's 3% of all required motor vehicle spaces.
It depends on the type of commercial use. It's not all commercial uses. I think I have to look it up, and I'm having a little difficulty pulling it up right this moment.
Okay, if the UDO is already covering this to some extent, then I will withdraw that suggestion.
Bill, do you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I do, I guess. When this first came through, we were talking about office space and things like that, and I tried to push a little bit of solar on the rooftop. And the argument was, well, you know, if we got office space, you know, how do we feed it down to each of the individuals? A hotel conference center or a grocery store is completely different in that they can feed it right down to themselves. They don't have to worry about offices and leases and anything like that. So what I'm going to suggest is that on the hotel conference center to add 40 kilowatts of solar PV on the rooftop, and that's minimal. I probably should say 100. Let me say 100. Let's change that to 100, and I'll tell you why. I know business owners that have put in 100 kilowatts. It's not a huge system, and we're delighted with what came out of it. So I would say 100 kilowatts on each of those buildings if there's two buildings. I don't understand. I tried to understand what you're saying. I know there's a hotel conference center, and then I hear about a grocery store of some sort. So on each of those buildings.
Include a conference center and a grocery over on the western side.
Okay. The thing is, if it's done when the building is built and under the financing of the building, it makes the cost of running the building less overall. The PV systems produce more monetary gain than it costs to support the first trust deed or whatever we have, the mortgage on the building. So the financing. So it when you get into it, you'll find that it just makes a whole lot of sense today with the cost of solar PV systems. So that's my suggestion.
Megan, may I request an amendment to the way this has been phrased? Because saying to all of commercial buildings would imply on every commercial building that might be coming in, and we may have several smaller commercial buildings come in adjacent to the grocery store. So if possible, based on Mr. Jensen's comment, I would say the hotel/conference center and grocery store. And I would actually specify, I can't think of the word. Anchor grocery store? Is that the term, David?
Yes, that would be correct.
Thank you.
The grocery anchor is what we call them.
Either one. Okay.
That's not defined by the UDO, so maybe we want to say a grocery store over a certain square footage, like maybe over 35,000 square feet, because that eliminates your smaller ones.
Thank you, Amanda. You know what they say, 2 minds are better than 1.
Mastermind principle.
That was very good. Do we have any further questions or comments? Suzanne?
I know this is kind of a far out one, but as somebody who travels with their dog to hotels occasionally, if the hotels allow them, I would recommend some pet waste stations near the hotel, obviously not obtrusively or to take away from the aesthetic of the hotel, but just as a convenience if the hotel does happen to allow dogs. That way you're not stuck trying to put them in the garbage bins near the front of the hotel.
Do we have any further questions or comments?
This is great. I do have one. Since it sounds like we're increasing kind of the impervious surface, an additional recommendation would be to implement some green infrastructure. And as a comment to the pet waste station, a part of this planned development includes mixed use, so there will be some apartments in this as part of this whole development, which would also benefit from the pet waste stations.
So green infrastructure is a pretty broad term. Do y'all get more specific than that?
Yeah, I think Megan was hopefully going to pull up a portion of our suggested zoning conditions. So I was just giving a moment for that to happen.
Yeah,
and this is Jessica Bolin, Stormwater Department. I just wanted to, reiterate that stormwater will have to be mitigated per our UDO as normal, regardless. I mean, the green infrastructure can go above and beyond, or they can choose a greener type SCM, but either way, stormwater quantity and quality will have to be addressed at the time of site plan.
Yeah, and let me make a point about this. We're really not changing impervious surface here because we're changing from an office building with a big parking lot to a hotel with a big parking lot. So there's really nothing different about that.
That's correct. That's correct.
And then there was parking lot areas being used up in the reservation area. The problem with using the reservation area for parking is that the hotel and the grocer won't, buy the sites, because if they worried about their parking getting taken away at some point in the future, then they don't have adequate parking. So that would be a material fact we would have to disclose, and that's why we can't sell it even with just parking in there. So it's really tight our hands, and we would like our hands in tight, I guess is the good way to put that. It benefits everybody here, and like I said, all we can figure out right now is that it's probably 35 years down the road on DOT's radar to even think about snipping up, putting an overpass in there, if they do it. And just so you all are aware, we have to put the super street design in there. And I'm sure you all are familiar with what the super street is. And as before we get COs on any of the part of the commercial buildings, we have to put the additional leftovers and the additional U-turn lane so that there are 2 U-turns and 2 leftovers going each direction, plus the signals in before we can get a CO on the buildings. So there will be additional traffic control that goes along with what we're doing.
The area David's speaking of there is at the intersection of Richardson and 64. Just so everybody's aware
Correct.
of that.
Bill, do you have your hand raised?
I have a question, I guess, for staff, if you don't mind. Yes, sir. Thank you. I have a question for staff on the reservation area. What is happening, if you have any idea, with Department of Transportation, and why can't they just buy that?
Well, there's,
out? I mean,
it's not in the current funding, the 10-year fundings. And as everyone knows, a lot of DOT projects got pushed back, including the change of 64 at Lake Pine and Laura Duncan. Those projects were pushed back 8 years, I think, or 8 or 9 years. And so best guess right now is that we're looking at 20 to 25 years possibly for this interchange to happen, unless DOT secured funding to expedite it quicker. But, we don't, it's an unknown at this time when it would be funded.
And I don't mind telling you, if somebody wants to write us a check now, we'd be fine to leave it alone. But, tying up that much valuable real estate for that long a period isn't quite right or fair.
I guess my concern is what happens in 25 years. Then, if they want to, I guess they just have to buy you guys out or buy whoever's there out. I mean,
Correct.
I'm looking at the school at Laura Duncan. They went in there knowing that something was really going to happen. That's my understanding. They were told, and then all of a sudden, a couple of years ago, it was going to happen, and all hell broke out. Kind of, they had to hurry. I understand your point of view, David, about them tying up your property in a way, or the town is. I guess maybe if it was used for non-building areas like parking lot or something, I don't know whether you'd want to do that right up on 64 though. But it's some manner so that in 20 or 25 years, if this happens or before, that there's not buildings to tear down like the Primrose daycare building.
Yeah, the current reservation condition allows for surplus parking and necessary lighting to be located within the reservation area.
Yeah, but like I just said, it does, if you think about it initially, yes, until you realize that if a hotel's up there and you've got 50% of their parking in the reservation area, and DOT comes along and takes 50% of their parking away from them, they no longer have an operating business, regardless of whether you take the building away from them or not. So they'd have to buy the building anyway, because that would be damaging enough to the hotel. And it's the same thing on the other side. If we use it just for parking, we can't. It's a non-marketable piece of land, even for that reason. I hope that makes sense.
I understand what you're saying. I frankly, I don't understand Department of Transportation, because if they don't have the money to put a road in, they sure should have foresight to buy up these areas. That's the cheap part.
Yeah, and I like I said, we have our partnership would be more than happy to have them write a check, but they don't have the funds right now, and it would be far cheaper for them to do it now. But again, tying us up for 25 years isn't right or fair. It's not. And I don't want to, we've had our attorneys obviously looking at it from a legal standpoint, which is why we're, where we are with this. So,
well, you can't fix DOT, that's for sure. I'm lowering my hand.
Does anyone else have any other questions or comments? Is there anyone who feels ready to make a motion on the list of suggested zoning conditions?
Katie, I just want to clarify whether or not we were going to expand on the implement green infrastructure recommendation. I did highlight a few options that the board has included below on the screen. So if we can keep it at implement green infrastructure, or we could add an option.
Greg, would you like to weigh in on that?
I mean, I think that the explanation about the no change in previous service and the stormwater staff's comment about still meeting the requirements provides some relief in that sense. So if we were to provide options, I would say definitely at least option 3, if not option 1 and 3, if we were to continue.
I think that's helpful. Thank you.
I could see vegetated rooftops maybe, but that depends on the commercial structure.
Yeah, for the kind of structure we're talking about, that
It may not be appropriate.
Is permeable pavers some sort of an option?
That is elsewhere, right, Megan?
Permeable pavers would be allowed if they chose to use them.
Correct. It's actually not included in the conditions list.
It's not under water quality, number E5.
Yes, I spelled it wrong when I was searching for it. Thank you, Suzanne.
Does anyone feel ready to make a motion on this list of suggested conditions?
I'll move that the board accept the recommended conditions as written.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Bill will second. I will vote in favor. Suzanne?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Adam?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Kim?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Great. Suggested zoning conditions approved. Thank you.
Thank you guys for your time, and have a safe trip home if you're not home, and we will see you later.
Thank you very much for your time.
I don't know if you all have looked at our website, but we have a video, kind of a drive-through of the area where these 5 main buildings are that surround that event lawn. You will be shocked and amazed at how nice this project is. We have spent lots and lots of time to make it very special and first class. If you get a chance, go onto the website. You can go to sweetwaterapex.com, or you can go to sweetwaterapextowncenter.com and look at that video. It's only about 2 minutes and 20 seconds, but it'll give you a really good feel for what this is really going to be. It's very special.
Thank you. I look forward to seeing it in person.
Okay, thank you so much for your time.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Sorry, I'm just making some notes, Megan, but feel free to let in the next group of developers.
Fantastic. Okay, now our next pre-application meeting is 808 Memberly Recombination, and I will be admitting Zach and Abel as our project representatives. Zach and Abel, welcome to the Environmental Advisory Board meeting.
Hey, thank you.
Hi, I'm Katie Schaff. I'm the chair of the EAB. If you please would take some time to take us through your project and what you are proposing, we would be happy to hear it.
Sure, yeah. Is there any way that I could share my screen, or do you guys have graphics that, okay, let me pull up a picture's worth 1,000 words, so.
Agree.
Stand by 1 second. All right, stand by, technical difficulties. Here we go. Okay, can you guys see that vicinity map?
Yes.
Okay, so my name is Zach Shipman. I'm representing Abel and Jessica Figueroa. They live at 804 Wimberley Road. The site you're looking at is kind of near the intersection of Castleberry and Wimberley. It's currently in the Wake County planning jurisdiction. It's not in the corporate limits or the ETJ. What we're trying to do is the owner lives in this bottom lot that you see here, kind of where the site text is at. That's his current house. He's on a septic system, and he also owns this smaller thumbprint lot here on the corner. And kind of what he wants to do is reshuffle some lot lines to make these more equal in size or different shape and size, and then build another house on an additional lot. So we've got 2 lots in, 2 lots out. We're not adding any lots at this time. But in order to do that, what we need to do is access sanitary sewer. And that sewer is being installed to the south with the Castleberry Estates project. There's a manhole, you can't see here, but there's a manhole pretty near the property line. And so in order to access that sewer, to get these 2 lots on sewer, we need to annex to Apex and alongside of that rezone to an appropriate district. So that's the nature of our petition, is to get inside the corporate limits so we can access that sewer. We are going, let's see here if I can get on this we're going for. I believe we're going to RR is the proposed zoning district. There's also, if I can find it here. I'm sorry, I should have had this. We had this ready. There's a little creek in the back of this property. We have not had that formally delineated yet, but understand that in the Castleberry Estates project to the south, that's an intermittent stream that runs there. So it likely comes with a buffer. But again, I have not had that delineated just yet. We wanted to get through this process first. So there's possibility that there is a riparian buffer along this rear property line. That's the only real environmental area that I know of. And so we've also proposed a few conditions that are probably in the documentation that you've already seen. But we'd be happy to talk about through those or hear your feedback.
Please.
On those.
Yeah, please go through.
Okay. Let's see here. So the conditions that we've wrote just as a first pass are what you see here. The limited uses that we're proposing: single family detached, accessory apartment, accessory structure. We are putting a 4 dwelling unit cap just in case, 10 years from now, there's some way to add additional lots in the future. That's not on the table right now, but we didn't want to handcuff ourselves at the moment. And then we had proposed an additional 25-foot drainage buffer on that stream to whatever is there already. There's no plans to put the house in the rear of that lot, but we did want to add that proffer that we would provide additional buffer. And then a couple of minor ones: exterior lighting, color temperature of 3000 K, and then all the exterior lighting will be on timers or light sensors. So those are the first pass ones that we propose, but we'd be happy to talk through any more that you have or that you want to see included.
Thank you for that. That was very helpful. my understanding, am I understanding correctly that the current proposed use of the additional building will be a rental apartment? Or is
No, so the owner, the Figueroa family, what they really want to do is just build another house that's similar to what they have now. But there's no current proposal to do a rental above, like an accessory rental unit. We left that in there just in the future if there ever wanted to be, like a mother-in-law suite, or there's affordable housing component that might want to go in, in the couple years from now, that would be an option and we wouldn't be conditioned out of that. So that's why we left that in there. But there's currently no proposal for an accessory residential unit. It would just be another single family detached is what we're planning now.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions? Hearing none.
Let me raise my hand.
Oh, sorry. Bill, go ahead.
Is this a wooded lot or is this denuded? And I'm looking at that.
Yeah, the smaller lot is wooded. Sorry, I'll go back to share my screen again. And I should have turned on the aerial here. This lot right here is wooded. The back of the current existing lot is pretty heavily wooded. Up in the front, towards the existing lot up here where the house is, that's obviously been cleared. And there's a little nugget right here. There's an old house that's sitting in the very corner it's abandoned, it's not being used right now. That area is clear, but the majority of this is wooded in the back. And, as far as I know, the proposal would be kind of stick the house in the same general setback as what's currently there and then leave the balance of the lot wooded in the back.
Okay, the only thing I would ask.
If you'd like, I can turn on the aerials that the town has
sure,
and
yeah,
share
sure,
those. Oops. And wrong one, sorry. There we go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you can see the house on the current lot, that kind of the front half is cleared. Then you can see the old foundation in the front that we just talked about and kind of the old abandoned structure there. And then the balance of that is wooded in the back.
Okay. My only suggestion would be then, I guess, is to pre-configure any new houses for solar.
Okay.
Conduit. I'm not going to try to force you to put solar on, but I would suggest to the owners that it saves them money if they do it, if they can. That's all.
Okay. So when you say pre-configure, what does that mean? Just conduit for solar panels or?
Correct. Run conduit from the attic down to the electric distribution box. I think the town has a kind of a little requirement on how to do that specification, and it's not much.
Okay.
Builders do it all the time. They don't even blink an eye at it, so it can't cost too much.
Right. Sure. Yeah, that's easy enough.
We're okay with it.
Thank you.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions? Oh, I'm sorry, someone has their hand raised. Suzanne, go ahead.
I just had a question. So you're gonna assume that it's an intermittent stream. So that would be a 50-foot buffer, and you're proposing.
Correct. Right.
So you're proposing a total of 75 feet. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Just if something wacky happens and it turns out to be a perennial stream, you just go with 100-foot and not 125, correct?
Correct. Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Yeah. And I really, obviously we haven't delineated it. I can't see how it would go from intermittent to perennial upstream of there, but I mean, stranger things have happened, I'm sure. But when we get to construction drawings for the sewer extension, we were going to have that delineated. I haven't had that done just yet.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I understood you weren't just offering, 25 on whatever it turned out
Correct.
to be. Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. I appreciate your effort in looking at the suggested zoning conditions and thinking through what works for your property. Does anyone feel ready to make a motion on the suggested zoning conditions? And perhaps Megan can pull them up. And I think Megan, we
Megan,
can add to that the solar conduit.
Right.
Yeah, solar conduit.
And I think that additional
Any
25
new
foot
buildings.
needs to be limited to just
intermittent
it's not-
streams.
Right.
yeah, it's intermittent streams, not all streams.
Does it need to
So,
be?
And
so the way it needs,
the undisturbed
Megan, the
buffer, or
way
is
it
it
needs to read is that it
undisturbed
needs
buffer,
to be
right?
an additional 25 feet of riparian buffer,
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
and then remove vegetated drainage way.
And one of the buffers.
And then shall be
Or the-
observed, yeah, shall be observed on the existing stream.
If it's intermittent.
And then, and right, if it's, and then at the very end of the sentence. Yep. If it is intermittent. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
That just makes planning staff's job so much easier.
And on the ads. Good. Okay, I'll finish.
I had a question. What if it to be an ephemeral stream?
There's an existing 25 foot on the plat. It's called a vegetated buffer. Now I don't know when that plat was done. If it's ephemeral, I think we would still offer up the 25 foot of additional in addition to the 25 foot that's already there.
So let's add that to the first condition.
So either way, you get a minimum of 50.
Or ephemeral.
So just to let you know, if this is going to access Town of Apex utilities, then it would go by the town's UDO requirements, and we do not have a buffer requirement for ephemeral streams. So would you be offering a 50-foot buffer for that ephemeral stream or 25 feet? I just want to be clear.
I don't see any reason we couldn't do the 50 feet for ephemeral.
Okay.
I think, Megan, we perhaps take out the word additional there because there is no requirement.
Right. And then I would actually change and to or.
Yeah.
A
50 feet of
or 50 feet
buffer.
of buffer. That's fine. 50 feet of buffer is fine either way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill, did you have an additional comment?
No, I think I was looking at the include solar conduct in building design. If it's building design, that's new buildings. I was looking at new buildings, not the house that's already on there. Okay.
Thank you. Would anyone like to make a motion on this list of suggested zoning conditions?
I move we accept these zoning conditions.
Thank you, John. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Bill. I will vote in favor. Suzanne?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Adam?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Bill?
I'll vote aye, and I would like to thank the applicant for what he's doing.
Jason?
Aye.
Kim?
Aye.
And Greg?
Aye.
Great, thank you. Approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Are we ready for the third and final? I think one of our friends here tonight wanted Neil in this meeting so bad they went ahead and admitted them from the lobby for me. So Neil is already with us. Welcome.
Thank you, and good evening, Chair Schaaf, right? Or Schaaf?
Yes, sir.
All right. And Vice Chair Mason, members of the EAB, I am Neil Ghosh with the Morningstar Law Group. I believe I'm flying solo today, but I'm pleased to speak with you about the proposed Red Sun rezoning. I think it was called Rising Sun on your agenda, but to be honest with you, don't ask me to explain the name. I don't know why my client called it that, but anyway, if you're not familiar with the property, it is accessed via a service road off Highway 64. There are a few what I would call rural single-family homes around the property, and otherwise there's not a whole lot going on right in this area, despite it being pretty much next to the Kelly Road interchange. This rezoning is meant to accommodate a pretty unique project in my estimation. The best way for me to describe it is it's part food hall and part co-working space in a way that's optimized for the modern era. So underground parking is planned, and the building will be 3 levels, roughly 50,000 conditioned square feet in total. The first 2 levels would operate as a food hall, with spaces for many small businesses. About half of the top floor would be built out as like a co-working space, available for like hourly rentals, basically for professional office users, kind of like WeWork. And then the other half of the top floor would be a larger scale flex space available on an hourly rental basis to accommodate things like fitness classes, maybe larger meetings or small events or whatever. Part of the idea is that this would be a place where small businesses could thrive, grow a following, and maybe move out, sort of like an incubator. The other part of the vision is to offer an optimized food delivery program for the restaurant. I don't know about you all, but ever since the pandemic, I feel like I've been using Grubhub, Uber Eats, DoorDash, and Instacart like multiple times a week. And while that has been a great service, this project envisions a better model. Folks can order food for delivery from any of the restaurants in the building, but those orders would be dispatched to a dedicated delivery service housed within the building, or I should say within the parking lot. But those orders would be dispatched based on where they're going. The idea is to reduce the total amount of vehicle miles driven in order to get people their food. So instead of having individual drivers drive to multiple restaurants scattered across the town and delivering meals, oftentimes one at a time, this place would allow a driver to pick up several orders in one location and deliver them all in a relatively concentrated zone. And this is not just about vehicle miles traveled. The dedicated delivery service fleet will be entirely EVs, and the applicant plans to charge, at least in part, those vehicles by solar. So I recognize that's a lot to digest, but this gives you an idea of what the applicant hopes to achieve on the property. That having been said, there are some limitations on what can be accomplished. The site is tight for space, in part because of an existing stream feature on the property. But overall, I think that gives you an idea of what they're expecting or hoping to be able to deliver here. I can kind of go through the conditions. I don't know. Forgive me. I feel like I did not receive a list of conditions specific to this case, so I'm just working off a list that I've seen previously. If it would be all right, I can kind of go through that.
Please do.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's the list I'm talking about. Okay. Sorry. To the extent there's, environmentally sensitive areas, we would install signage in those areas. We also would agree to, plant native flora in landscape areas, and use warm season grasses. we would agree to increase the number of native hardwood tree species planted or required to be planted. I believe the requirement is 2 species, so we'd increase that to 3. Obviously, we would include solar conduit in the building design. It's going to be in part powered by solar, and we would agree to implement at a minimum a 10 kilowatt system. We would include the dark sky, outdoor lighting, shielded lighting, the lighting temperature, color, and then there's lighting efficiency options like energy efficient lighting in the building design, and lowering the maximum foot candles outside the building, and installing timers or light sensors, smart lighting technology. So those are the items that we're looking at right now, and we're happy to get your feedback on this.
Neil, question, you did say the food delivery vehicles would be EV. Where will there also be stations for people who are visiting the building to charge their EV vehicles?
So that's a good question, and I can't answer it right now. So obviously there's going to be EV charging, and some of it will be, is intended to be powered by solar. I don't know how many spaces that is, and I don't know how many delivery vehicles there are, but I understand the question. I can't answer it.
And so I guess also a question for town staff, because there's a UDO requirement now, depending on the size of your parking lot, to have stations. But if you're using the stations for the businesses in the building, then does that still meet the requirement, or do you have to install additional stations beyond that?
So the UDO does not specify that it's for, whether it's for public use or for employees. If the spaces are even required, the amount required is dependent upon the use and the number of parking spaces required. So there's not a standard for that. And just keep in mind, there's not going to be able to be a zoning condition that requires that EV vehicles be used in this business. So that can't be a zoning condition.
Fair enough. That was something Neil told us about the intention of.
Sure. I just wanted to make sure in case it came up.
I think what I would like to suggest, Neil, is that you plan at least one additional EV station that is for the people using your food hall or your co-working space. And based on the way you've described those two things, I think your clientele is going to want that.
I'm going to guess you're probably correct. So, I mean, I can't necessarily make that commitment right now. I would encourage you to include it as the suggested condition, and we'll go from there. And I feel pretty confident that my client will be interested in doing it, but I'll have to talk to them first.
I have one.
Please go ahead.
I have one question out of curiosity. The egress into this facility is going to be via 64.
So currently the access point to this is off of a service road from 64. I guess you would still call that 64, but it's not, the main travel way.
Yeah, well, I was thinking it might be hard getting in and out of 64 where that's located. So they're trying to get some restrictions up on access points.
I think the service road was intentionally provided and left over. Yeah. Okay. We're on the same page.
Neil, regarding the solar, you suggested 10 kilowatts. That will support kind of one house. Is there any way you can run it up to 20 kilowatts or something? Because it's.
So I was just going off Facebook on the sheet. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a lot more than that.
Yeah. As long as something's there, then the folks will definitely be talking to a solar installer and see the benefit of once the building is built that saves money.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess, Bill, I would put it this: we're doing solar on this building. If you need to put a specific number on it, I would recommend you just put it in the proposed or recommended conditions for this, because I can't commit to it right now. I think the commitment on the conditions page for non-residential is listed at 10 kilowatts, so that's what I said. Sure, yeah, we'll do that. If you think 20 makes more sense, just put that in the recommendation. And again, I'm pretty sure the system that's envisioned for this building is going to be higher than 20.
Yeah, I would bet it's going to be closer to 100 in reality by the time you're said and done, frankly.
That's what I'm guessing, yeah.
Okay, if you don't mind, let's just stick in 20. I do have a question on the underground parking.
Yeah.
Are they thinking about actually digging it under, or is it just going to be like first floor parking? I mean, underground parking is expensive.
Yeah, I mean, this is not going to be an inexpensive building, to be clear. And you know, my understanding is they're going to dig it.
They're going to dig? Okay.
That's my understanding. This is going to be a serious investment, and it's kind of the brainchild of my client. You know, it's a real vision, different way to do business, and for him, the main purpose is to eliminate a lot of the carbon associated with food delivery by centralizing food and optimizing the delivery of that food from that location.
I think it's a great project, personally. I think that's wonderful, especially underground parking, so it gets rid of the footprint of impermeable surface.
That's kind of the idea, right? Yeah.
Patrick, I saw your hand was raised, but it is now down. Do you have a question?
No, ma'am. I was just looking. I'm good. No questions here.
Sure.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have some. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So it looks like we're looking at a lot that's forested, possibly with a stream running through the front of it down by 64. How many trees are going to be taken out? Is this going to be like a mass grade thing where all these trees that we're seeing, which looks like to be pretty mature canopy, are going to be taken out?
I can't answer the question exactly, but let's just be clear about something. They're talking about digging out a huge portion of the site for underground parking. If I had to guess, I'm thinking every tree that can be taken out of this property will be taken out of this property. That's my guess. I mean, I don't know for sure, but it's going to be difficult to save trees, particularly when we know where the access point from the service road will be coming. I mean, they're going to have to punch it in here and get to the back portion of the lot. So there are going to be a lot of trees that are cleared out here.
And if somebody from town staff, does this type of development require any type of RCA?
It does. Non-residential development will require 25% of the site to be reserved as resource conservation area. There will also be perimeter buffers around this site because there's existing residential around it. And so depending upon how we classify this use, again, we haven't had the pre-app with TRC yet on this. And so this will be, there'll be at least probably 40-foot buffers required around the perimeter of the site, 20 at a bare minimum. And then there'll be at least a 50-foot buffer from the Highway 64 service road right of way.
Right.
I looked at the front footage. I think they only got 100 feet on 64 frontage. Wow, that's going to be tough.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, this is going to be a tough site. That's why I don't want to like beat around the bush. A lot of these trees are going to come out. It's just going to be required to build this site in this manner.
Yeah, by the time the buffers are done, it's said and done, it's just going to be enough for a little roadway to come through, or driveway.
I mean, pretty much. That's kind of what I'm saying.
So with the tree clearing in mind, I would like to recommend a condition that any existing trees that are 12 inches or larger in diameter that are removed be replaced by planting 1.5-inch caliper native trees from the town's design and development manual.
Suzanne, just so you know, that is already listed here on the
Okay, I'm sorry.
recommendations list. No, that's
Sorry
okay.
about that.
I just wanted to let you know it's on there.
That's what I was actually raising my hand about initially, was like, you got 2.9 acres, and time you look at this, how it's zoned with, your perimeter buffers and your highway buffer. I mean, the footprint of whatever it is going to be small as far as what the usable area is. I mean, so that footprint, that's really the only way to go is down, so, or up one. But yeah, like I said, and Bill, you're 100% right. I mean, it's going to be a tight squeeze in there for a driveway entrance for, commercial use.
Yeah, and if it's appropriate, I'll just point out that, this area, I believe, is designated for like a mixed use area. And, I recognize that some of the zoning around this property is residential today, which is what's really driving the buffer issue here. But over time, what the comprehensive plan calls for in this area is not residential. And so, this might be the first development, in this area that's true to the nature of the comprehensive plan. And so it may stick out like a sore thumb, but it is consistent with town's long range plans. And moreover, it's a cool product.
I fully understand what you're saying. This is Bill. It's too bad that the individuals can't work with their adjacent property owners in some manner to cut the costs. And
funny you should mention that, because the property that is east of here, but the smaller one, has contacted me as well about potentially rezoning his property, but there's an intervening lot between them.
that'd be great if you could do a shared driveway or something and all that stuff.
Well, given that there's an intervening lot, I don't think a shared driveway is going to work. But all I'm saying is I think this area might be, that property there has contacted me.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So this area might be developing, kind of more in the near future, more in line with what the town has planned for this area. So, part of that is also why, we understand that is a recommended condition to replace those trees with higher caliber trees. But one, I think the cost associated with doing that kind of tree survey, I don't know that it makes sense. And the other thing is, those trees, if this area does develop as the comprehensive plan contemplates, those larger trees are not that they're going to be a detriment or anything, but it's not exactly what you'd envision for kind of a mixed use area like North Hill. So, I mean, it's a good condition, don't get me wrong, but it's not one that we think we're proposing at this time. I recommend that I understand that it's a recommended condition. I get that.
Other questions? Is anyone ready to make a motion?
Can I weigh in for a second? I would like to see 20 kilowatt minimum, just as a.
So that's now on there. And actually, I did want to clarify a couple of things here. First of all, I'd like to point out that it does say red sun rezoning on here. So got that right now.
Cool.
So we do have the at a minimum of 20 kilowatts there, Bill.
Thank you.
The solar conduit. I wanted to ensure, I believe, Katie, that this reflects the recommendation that you all
what I'd like you to say is at least add one EV parking space for guest use or client use.
Is that on a per square footage basis, or how is that being asked for?
So there will be, well, there may be, I guess we don't know. There may be some spaces required by the UDO for this development, but I think my concern here is that those spaces are going to end up being monopolized by the drivers for the food delivery business, so that there should be at least one additional space for people either visiting the food hall or using the co-working space.
Is that based off of square footage, or is that based off of the door? Like,
it's just one
It's
additional
just one space, right?
Just one space.
And that shouldn't be a problem because, you have two coming out of one charging station, two plug-in wires or whatever you call them.
And Neil, my last clarification was on the lighting efficiency. I was furiously typing the amazing recommendations that you're adhering to. But I wanted to double check that these were all of the lighting efficiencies that you were committing to, or if there are any extras on there.
The incorporate natural lighting techniques into building design, I don't know that we're able to commit to that. But let me see, these other ones. Yeah, those other ones we are, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, just making sure.
And based on staff comments, you can take off that bottom one about the vegetated buffer and the DOT right of way.
Would anyone like to make a motion to approve these suggested conditions?
I'll move to, I'll make a motion on adopting the suggested conditions as written.
Thank you,
I'll second
Suzanne.
that.
Was that Patrick seconding?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Patrick. I will vote in favor. Suzanne?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Adam?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Kim?
Aye.
And Greg?
Greg did mention to me that he had to step out for a minute and he'll be back.
Fair enough. We still have enough to pass that motion. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Neil.
Have a good one.
Thank you. I think on that last line that Suzanne was talking about, taking out the additional buffer for NCDOT along that road, it's probably kind of a standard we need to stick by, because if it's, long range, looking at commercial installation along 64, that's going to be held constant all the way down that road. So to ask one and then one doesn't, then the next one doesn't, then you're it's not going to be consistent through that corridor where the commercial is trying to go.
That's fair.
Megan,
I know we still
really
have.
too bad this is getting. Go ahead.
What was that, Jim?
I would love to see these things develop more as a consistent package. This is gruesome in a way. It's a nice development, but it's really not the way to develop an area. Just
Got to talk everybody into selling at one time.
Yeah. I've worked on some of that, and that's impossible, just about.
Megan, I know we still have a lot to get through. Do we need a 5-minute break?
I do just want to mention that the Habitat for Humanity presentation is being postponed to the February meeting.
Great. Is everyone okay to continue? Does anyone need a moment? Let's go ahead with the housing presentation.
All right, tonight with us we have CJ, who's our new housing program manager. Welcome, CJ.
Yeah, welcome. It's nice to meet the Environmental Advisory Board. Before I get started, I just want to make sure you can see my screen, which has the title slide of the presentation, and that you can hear me. So,
Yes, sure. We can
okay.
see it. We can hear you.
All right, great. Thank you. It's nice to meet you. My name is CJ Valenzuela. I'm the new housing program manager here with the town of Apex, and I'll be covering our affordable housing plan overview. So hang with me for a few minutes here. So the town council, as you might be aware, adopted our very first affordable housing plan fairly recently, within the last year, February 1st of 2021 to be exact. And in this affordable housing plan, it really outlines several details. Number one is a long-term vision for what the town would like to accomplish when it comes to affordable housing, along with some specific goals, also a specific needs assessment of raw data, housing cost burden, market rate, affordable statistics were conducted as part of this affordable housing plan. Also, public input was super important. So we received plenty of public comment as it went through the process. And then as a result of all this, 14 recommendations were solidified and broken up by near-term, mid-term, and long-term recommendations. And I'll be going through those in this PowerPoint. And then there's an action plan for staff to tackle these recommendations as they're broken up. So in addition to the town council adopting an affordable housing plan, one of the other measures that they approved is that we now have an established affordable housing fund, which is equivalent to about a penny on the tax. And so now we have a local revenue source, a consistent local revenue source to help invest dollars specifically for affordable housing within the town of Apex. And some of those recommendations that the town council would like to see with this fund is to generate and create new affordable housing units. That's probably the primary purpose of this fund. In addition to that was to start a rehabilitation program in the town of Apex, and then to invest some of those dollars for down payment assistance or other homeownership opportunities, and also look at emergency rental assistance and also accessory dwelling units as other measures of affordable housing. So we have a plan, we have a fund, and that leads me to the first near-term recommendation, which is now we have staff. So that's a natural progression as we're setting the foundation for affordable housing here in Apex. And I came on board less than 6 months ago. And in addition to that, we utilized a platform through the Lead for North Carolina AmeriCorps program to hire a community and program specialist for an 11-month term full time. So I do have some staff support as well to help carry out all these objectives that we're going to go through in this presentation. So plan, fund, and staff. So there's the foundation, and here we go. So the next priority for town council was to set up and create a housing advisory board. So here we are, we have an environmental advisory board, but we didn't have a housing advisory board. So this was on October 26th of last year. The town council appointed 9 members. We have 1 town council member on our board. That is a current Mayor Pro Tem Audra Killingsworth. We have a planning board member, Tina Sherman, and we also have 7 other voting general members on that board. Our very first meeting is next Friday. So we'll be, we're a brand new board, and we're looking forward to, tackling some of these policies and recommendations and running through policy and funding recommendations through the board, who will ultimately recommend to town council for approval of certain things. So the purpose of the board, once again, is to provide town council with policy and funding recommendations. This is all in relation to affordable housing, to assist in the creation of an annual housing report, and to advise on housing advocacy efforts. So the next step is to utilize those local affordable housing fund dollars that we talked about in the slide number 2 to invest in generating new affordable units. So I am pleased to report that last week we received approval of the largest affordable housing project in town history. That is called Broadstone Walk, with the developer is DHIC Incorporated. And that is 164 units of new affordable rental housing that will be built right across the street from Walmart on South Hughes Street. And so we're super excited about that project. Wake County put $3.5 million in that project. The developer received what we call a 4% low-income housing tax credit in equity investment through the state of North Carolina. And then we, the town of Apex, put in just over $2 million to help as well fill that gap. So that was this is our first 100% affordable housing project in the form of a rental project in 23 years. The last time we had a low-income affordable housing project in Apex was in 1999 with Beach Ridge Apartments, and that was also with DHIC, who was the developer of that. So we're super excited about that. So as you can see, we have the plan, we have the staff, we have the fund. We got our first project done. So you're seeing the fruit of the labor and the fruition come to play. In addition to that, per town council, is we allocated $500,000 to start our very first rehab program. So we have a rehab program here in Apex. It's called the Apex Cares Program. And this is a grant for up to $15,000 for low-income homeowners who earn up to 65% of the area median income, to help with ADA accessibility upgrades, to help correct health and safety hazards, to help with energy efficiency updates, to help with structural, it could be foundation, roof, plumbing, electrical. So, and we contract with a nonprofit organization called Rebuilding Together of the Triangle to help administer this program. So we are very pleased to start seeing this program really have an uptick in applications and the amount of households we're starting to be able to serve with this program. So the other thing we did is we town council allocated about $500,000 to start our first customer assistance program, in which qualified residents of Apex who pay their electricity bill to the town of Apex can receive up to a $636 one-time credit on their bill. And we contract with Western Wake Crisis Ministry to help administer this program. And this serves households who earn equal or less than 200% of the federal poverty level. So you can see real dollars, real results are starting to come into the town of Apex. The next thing that we're working on right now as we speak is we're actually working on creating an online dashboard. So this will be a public interface. So key affordable housing information will be able to be accessed from the public. Graphs, charts, tables. How are we doing against our affordable housing plan goals? How many low income, extremely low income, very low income? How many rental units? How many ownership units do we have? All this, there'll be a map, so you can find the locations of our affordable housing projects. So we're working on that as well. And these are all recommendations straight from the affordable housing plan. The next thing and the current thing actually that staff is working on right now is an affordable housing incentive zoning policy. What the goal is to encourage market rate developers to start constructing affordable housing within their market rate development for both ownership and rental. And I am pleased to report that we got the Broadstone Walk project, which that was huge, right? That's our biggest project in history for affordable housing, but also for the first time in history, November 23rd at Town Council, we had a 90-unit mixed-use project called the Villages at Apex. And for the first time ever, we got 5 affordable rental units that were available up for those that earn up to 60% of the area median income in a market rate project. So we got 5 affordable rental units in the market rate project. So we're super excited about that. So we're trying to come up with viable a menu of incentive options that will help offset developer revenue loss in exchange for producing affordable units on site. So that's what we're working on right now. And we'll be taking this item before our newly created Housing Advisory Board, and then hopefully get Town Council some recommendations, hopefully in the near future is the goal. So those are the near-term recommendations. As far as midterm recommendations is to look in, we did a survey of some potential affordable housing sites or potential sites that are in Apex that would be good, that we feel would be good for affordable housing. But when we're looking at those type of sites, not just for tax credit purposes, we're also looking at sites that will be near transportation portals. And it's so important when we talk about affordable housing and linking those households to viable transportation, because not everybody has a car. A lot of folks will need to take public transportation. So we're also going to make sure that we don't miss that mark. And we're working with our long range planning division to make sure that when we're looking at properties for affordable housing, that we're also looking at the transit aspect of it and public transportation aspects of it. And then, of course, with affordable housing and any housing to meet federal fair housing standards and affirmatively further fair housing, we want to look at ways that we can continually promote housing for all of our residents. We need to have affordable housing for seniors, for those that have a documented disability. And I do want to go back real quick. The Broadstone Walk project, that was 164 units. 36 of those units are for permanent supportive housing, which means those are units that are set aside where their housing is not only going to get subsidized, but they get full wraparound services. Those are for households that have a documented disability or at risk of being homeless due to income, and they'll get case management, mental health, medical, and other vital services in those 36 permanent supportive housing units. So that's an example of trying to create housing for all residents. We are also looking at middle income housing and looking at AMI percentages for those that maybe have a little bit higher salary than your normal. Maybe you have a dual income household, or you have a firefighter, a police officer, a nurse that's making that $60,000 to $80,000 income range. So we need to make sure we have some housing opportunities for a broad range of residents as well. So we're also looking and studying that as well. And then we talk about partnerships, because we can't do this all alone by ourselves, right? We're going to be part of the solution, but we're not the whole answer, and so a perfect opportunity of this is a couple things. Wake County just put in $3.5 million for the Broadstone Walk project. So that was huge. We wouldn't have got that project done without their additional subsidy into that project. So that's a good form of a partnership. Another form of a partnership is right now we are a non-entitlement jurisdiction, which means that we don't automatically get federal grant money from HUD, the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, but we do have access to it through a partnership with Wake County. So we have every 3 years, we've typically been renewing a cooperation agreement with Wake County, which gives the town of Apex access to federal community development block grant funding. And we've received to date, in the inception of this agreement, we've received about $10.5 million of federal community development block grant funding coming into Apex, which is averaging, since we've had this agreement in place, of about $400,000 a year. So even though we're not a direct entitlement, we are still getting CDBG dollars into our community for affordable housing. So, and then to take a look at other opportunities for affordable housing, like down payment assistance, homeownership counseling, which is so vital, because it's not just when you talk about sustainability, and I talked to Megan about this too, it's not just getting the household in the home, it's also sustaining their lifestyle, to making sure that they have the education and the empirical knowledge to understand that it's not just buying a house, it's also maintaining it as well, and making sure that they get financial literacy to understand all the other costs associated with home ownership, for example. So that's what that's part of that counseling and education and financial literacy that goes hand in hand to help sustain the household and not just the house. So, and then to take a look at opportunities, maybe consider an overlay district or other options that might promote a higher density product than otherwise may have been just allowed, like a single family home, for example. Taking a look at other prototypes that could generate affordable housing. And so that's what we'll be looking at as well. And then surveying our land. Land is tight, land is expensive, And so we are also, we got an allocation of American Rescue Plan Act money, or called ARPA. So we are at least looking at sites that we might be able to acquire that would be a good fit for affordable housing or future affordable housing opportunities. So that would be public land, like land acquisition, you know. So we're going to look at some of that aspect as well. So those are the midterm recommendations that we'll be working on. And then long-term recommendations is to utilize the existing housing stock that we have now and maybe looking into accessory dwelling units or accessory apartments, you know, the ADUs as an option for affordable housing. And then looking at providing emergency rental assistance and supportive services for residents who may be at risk of homelessness or need additional support services as well. So what is affordable housing? The basic definition of affordable housing is a household who spends no more than 30% of their combined gross household income on housing costs, including utilities. And so when we're looking at affordable housing, how much can a household make and still qualify for affordable housing? So when we talk about affordable housing, there's several income bands that we're looking at. And so you see the lowest affordable housing income band that HUD defines is what we call extremely low income households who are earning up to 30% of the Raleigh, North Carolina metropolitan statistical area. So if I am a household size of 2 and I am making no more than $23,000 a year, maybe I'm on fixed income, maybe I'm just getting Social Security, then I would be considered an extremely low income household. If I can make up to 50% of the area median income per household size, depending on what my income is, then I'd be considered a very low income household. And then 60% is considered low income. 60% is considered low income for rental. And then there's an additional buffer and a bump in the percentage. 80% is considered low income for purchase programs or ownership because they need to have the extra income bandwidth to support property tax, a principal and interest mortgage payment, and everything else associated as a condition of ownership, homeowners insurance, mortgage insurance. So there's a bump in the ownership side. So 80% AMI is considered low income for purchase programs like Habitat for Humanity or Community Land Trust, for example. And then the area median income, which everything is based off, is the 100%. So these are your common, there's a lot more income percentage. I'm just showing you some common ones that we are also studying for our affordable housing incentive zoning policy, and also that middle income housing as well. So let's talk about what, in addition to all this, we have a excellent project right now with Habitat for Humanity, who was originally going to be on the next call, but they'll come back to you in February, it sounds like. But we have a project here called Casena Lane with Habitat for Humanity that we're super excited about. This is 9 detached single-family homes that are available to first-time home buyers earning up to 70% of the area median income. So this is a great opportunity for those that want to stay in Apex, that want to build, get started in Apex, to have an opportunity to purchase something in Apex. So we talked about the Broadstone Walk project and the rehab program. Now here's an opportunity to purchase something in Apex. So we're excited about this project. Then the Broadstone Walk project, which is our largest. Let me give you an example of what the affordable housing is. So this project is 164 units broken up in 3 prototypes. There's a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, and a 3-bedroom product. The 1-bedroom, there's 32 1-bedrooms that will be in this apartment complex, available to those that earn up to between 40 and 60% of the AMI. So now you have a better understanding of how much those households can make. The rents will range for those 1-bedrooms between $699 and $1,029. And the far right column that you see is the average market rate rent for a 1-bedroom apartment. So these are apartments, by the way. So average 1-bedroom apartment right now in Apex rents for almost $1,600. The 2-bedroom product, there'll be 100 units in here, same AMI income percentage rates. But those affordable rents will be between $827 and $1,232, where the market's averaging $1,744 for a 2-bedroom apartment. And then the 3-bedroom product, the affordable rents will be between $969 and $1,424. And we're already hitting the $2,000 mark on average rent for a 3-bedroom apartment here in Apex. So I just wanted to show those that might be watching, and also the Environmental Advisory Board, how important it is to produce affordable housing for our residents, to keep them in Apex or to bring someone to Apex. So we also wanted to know, what are the market rate rents doing? So we did a market rate rent analysis. So these are what the average market rate rents are, broken down by studio, between a studio to 5-bedroom, different prototypes between apartments, condos, townhomes, and single family homes. So you can see we are a high cost area. We're definitely higher cost than the general Wake County jurisdictions. We're up there with, Cary, and, we're very expensive. So when we look at affordable housing, we really have to look at Apex as its own island sometimes, because we are higher cost than what's represented countywide sometimes. So, and then we want to know, what are individuals making? How much are they earning? So when we're talking about generating affordable housing for our residents, we want to make sure that we have a wide variety of those different AMI percentages, because we understand different individuals and households make different income levels. So we want to make sure that we have everything from 30% AMI, which is the lowest income category, and maybe pushing all the way up to 100% AMI for those that maybe that have either dual income households, or someone that's maybe like a nurse or a police officer, or someone making the $60,000 to $80,000, $90,000 range. So there's a lot. I know I didn't have a whole lot of time, but so I just wanted to share that with you, and hopefully this helps. Now that we have staff on board, we have a plan, we have a fund, we have a housing advisory board, and we have several items to work on, as I showed you, over the next 5 to 10 years. This affordable housing plan is a 5 to 10 year plan. So we got a lot of work to do, and we look forward to partnering and continuing to work with Megan and her staff, and continuing to cross collaborate. And thank you guys for having me here tonight. Appreciate it.
CJ, thank you so much.
Thank you, CJ. And I just want to add on to that really quickly, just by saying that there definitely is a strong relationship between affordable housing and sustainability in the environment. And I think there tends to be somewhat of a stigma. It's definitely not a perfect equation. But as CJ was saying, it's not just affordable housing, it's affordable living. And so that's when sustainability really comes into play. Energy efficient, high performing properties consume less energy, which leads to lower utilities and operations costs. So it's really a full picture approach, and we're so happy to have you all on board.
Yeah, and if there's one little nugget I can leave you with, as far as when it comes to sustainability, I had invited Megan and Val to come out to Habitat for Humanity to tour some of the homes that are being built. And what we all found out was this, because right now with COVID-19, certain materials they're backlogged. They can't get lumber fast enough and windows fast enough and certain things. So when we talk about sustainability, this kind of blew our mind. Habitat for Humanity was using used denim jeans for their insulation. And Megan and I were just like, wow, what a great way when we talk about sustainability, to be a creative way, right? To use, used jeans for the insulation. So we just thought that was pretty radical, and that was pretty cool. So I just wanted to share that one nugget before I head out.
It is super exciting. And next month, you'll hear from Maria, the Habitat representative, and she'll explain some more of the energy efficiency measures and more about Habitat.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you. CJ, thank you so much for your time and for all that information.
Thank you for having me.
Megan, we go to dark sky.
I believe that is one of our final agenda items.
This time I understand what we're looking at, so I really appreciate the marked up copy. Now I feel like I really get it.
I'm glad. I think just so you know, Councilmember Gant is the only one that I received comments from for this document. I know that he was here earlier. I think he had to jump off. But these items are here for discussion, and the next step, just as a reminder, is staff review. So the goal for tonight is for the board to agree upon this document to then be sent to staff.
Kim or John, would you like to, let us know some important points?
Sure. I have about 3 minutes before I have to go, so I'll be super quick. The biggest takeaway is that we went through and we added things to make sure we were consistent with LED fixtures, trying to update with where we're currently at as an industry, and making it to where we were actually getting what we wanted. Trying to add more language to help explain the overall goals of this, as well as be very clear about the fixture types we wanted, the ratings we wanted to see, reducing the glare, the uplight, all the things that have been really important to this committee, for the environmental impact, as well as just trying to have a cohesive, good look for our lighting design, where we all know the projects where you drive by them and you're like, oh, that looks terrible. So just, really trying to make it consistent and easy to follow. There are some stuff in there that we would like to have with the understanding with working with Shelley that would potentially be something the town would not include right now because it's a little more stringent or difficult to really lay out, but that the EAB could then take the next step and have that be as our recommendations, and then, eventually get that incorporated. I think that's about it. I know last time we talked about some of the specifics a little bit more. So hopefully in seeing all the changes, it made more sense.
For me, it made a lot more sense. Thank you.
Sure. It was one of those, I think all of us in the committee had looked at it so much that we just knew, and you forget what other people haven't seen.
Sure. John, is there anything you'd like to add?
I think she's covered it.
Great. Do we have questions from anyone on the board?
I do have a question on Brett's comment regarding addressing existing development that's not in compliance. To fix it to where substantial revisions in a development require compliance with updated lighting standards, but I don't know how you would define that.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually something like that would involve an amortization process, and that can be very challenged. We would definitely have to review something like that with legal, but if there was proposed changes to an existing development, like an expansion or a revision, revised layout to their parking lot, or if they wanted to completely change out their light fixtures, then they would have to comply with the UDO to the extent reasonable and practicable. But just to go in and say you have this long to change your lights to comply with the new ordinance, I find that.
No, I wasn't suggesting. I was just, somebody was going in and doing some changes to their site. I don't know how far you have to, how much of a change you have to make to where you really have to start incorporating new UDO requirements in that design. Because I know where the church I'm at, we've got a little building that sits right there on the sidewalk that's allowed us to keep the building from being torn down when we've had to do some rebuilding on it. But it's because of that grandfathering in on that provision. Otherwise, it'd be set too close to the street.
Right. So everybody, if this changes to the ordinance, any existing site would, would not have to make changes unless they were, until they went to change their site, not change the use necessarily, but make revisions to their site. And the degree of how much would need to be changed would depend on the redevelopment. So that would be looked at on a case by case basis. And that's true with any development standard that changes.
Mm-hmm. And we look at those very carefully. We've had everything from somebody coming in and repaving their site and asking them to fix the paint on their fire lane striping on the curb. To and I think at one point we actually asked them to fix some screening issues that were a problem. Typically, it's something that we work with the planning director very closely on. We're not normally going to make somebody demolish and move a building, though. So, for example, to your church point of view, but lighting fixtures, especially those on buildings, can normally be fairly quickly swapped out. It would become more of an issue the bigger the site is, though. But we do work on those pretty closely to bring people into compliance over time.
So I guess the town is already addressing his comment in my mind.
To some degree, we are. I think that Mr. Gant may want something a little more proactive, just based on other conversations with him. But again, that would be something we'd have to talk to legal about. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I feel great about this. And John and Kim, thank you so much. I know how much time it took and how many months it's been, and you guys have really done a wonderful job. Thank you. Do we have other questions from the board, or is anyone ready to make a motion that this move ahead to town staff?
I'll move that it goes ahead to town staff if nobody has any comments or questions.
Thank you, Suzanne. Do we have a second?
A second.
Thank you very much. I will vote in favor. Suzanne?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Adam?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Kim?
Obviously, I'm going to say aye, but thank you for asking.
Thanks. And Greg?
Aye.
Great. Thank you so much, John and Kim. It's so appreciated. That was quite a lot of work that you put in.
I just want to mention that Patrick was on the work group as well.
I apologize. Forgive me, Patrick.
No, those two deserve all the credit. I have very little to no input, but no, those two get all the credit for sure.
I apologize about that. I will not make that mistake again.
No problem. Like I said, I'll be the first one to stand up here and say they did all the work.
Thank you, Megan. In order to be respectful of everyone else's time, I think if anyone would like to make a suggestion of something for a future discussion topic, we'll be happy to hear it, but I think we will skip open discussion. If there's anything that anyone would like to add, Megan can put it on a future agenda.
Councilmember Stallings?
Yes, I just want to extend my gratitude to each one of you for your amazing work and your commitment. When we envisioned this Environmental Advisory Board, it was hard to know exactly what we were going to be getting, but this is amazing. And on behalf of council, I just want to thank you for your thoughtfulness and your commitment and your wonderful recommendations. And I'm just really excited about the work from this board, and I just want you to know you're appreciated.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us. We appreciate that.
You're so welcome.
Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn? John is on mute, but so noted, John.
I move we adjourn.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Great. Thank you, Suzanne. I will vote in favor. Suzanne?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Adam?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Kim, if you're still with us?
Aye.
And Greg?
Aye.
Thanks. You guys, thank you so much. This is the first time we've had everyone together in quite a long time. And I think it was really important today because we had a lot of different and new topics to face. So thank you very much for that.
And welcome new members.
Thank
you. Welcome, folks.
Megan, thank you.